Hello, epic gamers. My name is Baron Davidson, or Oxen, at oxen.co.uk. Let's just jump right into it. Today, I would like to speak of my current understanding on awakening and enlightenment. This, just for context, consumed my life about maybe 2 years ago. I'm 19 years old right now. I live in Oxfordshire in the UK. And about 2 years ago, especially, is when it sped up, and I took a step back at one point, and I was like, when did this consume my life? There's really no room for much else. There's awakening, and then there's the bigger picture of personal development and all sorts, or vice versa. But ultimately, it's this entirety, bigger picture that kind of consumed my life. So I'm very serious about this stuff. I've had probably maybe 60, 65 something, I don't know, mushroom trips, a few LSD trips, no like DMT or nothing, but at this point I've mastered psilocybin magic mushrooms, and that's where most of my enlightenment experiences have came from. And I now feel I can I can take 7 grams, no problem. I can lose the plot, but I never really lose the plot. I've really dealt to swim through the drug world, and it's a skill. But anyway, so besides from that, let's get into enlightenment and awakening. So I'm going to just try and articulate my best understanding of it currently, for my own sake, and if I make an updated version of this, I will try and update the description or the comment section, so make sure to check that, and I'll let you know if there's any updated video. But this is just me on a whim, just recording for no reason. I'm just laying in bed right now, staring at the ceiling. I thought, hey, let's talk about it, because yesterday I had an incredibly deep enlightenment and awakening experience, and these often point very much to the present moment, and the closest thing that is deemed to absolute truth, which is the sensory field, the present moment, being, awareness on awareness on awareness for infinity, solitude, silent darkness, and whatnot. So let's get into awakening and spiritual enlightenment and the whole shebang. So, like I say, I've been on this path for a long time. I used to think I knew what enlightenment was about. Okay, so let's say my YouTube channel I started about 10, 11 months ago at the end of 2021. I uploaded videos titled God Realization and Awakening, and while they were some form of awakening, they don't contradict. Ultimately, they just build off of each other, it seems, if it's a legit awakening. They did not really touch what awakening really is, and what awakening really is, and what true enlightenment is it really does take a minute to wrap your mind around it. Right, so when I was doing my teeth, when I was probably about 14, 15, probably not 16, maybe. I'm 19 now. In Oxfordshire, in England, in the UK. I don't know if I already mentioned that. But yeah, when I was super young, I had a random inkling while I was brushing my teeth, and I went, "I'm not my thoughts," and that was a real experience. I messaged my friend, and I was like, "Bro, I just realized I'm not my thoughts." Right. This is a central idea to enlightenment and spirituality. I promise. It's the illusory identification with thoughts, mind, and the conceptual. So what this is the thoughts. Ultimately, the awakening I had very recently, right? was me applying awareness to awareness to awareness forever. And eventually this came to the conclusion of my reality. I became so conscious that my reality became nothing but my options. And my options were, well, I was in an incredibly deep state of being anyway. It became my natural state, a much more present being within reality. And but then within this being, I saw how there was the sensory field and what is the closest thing deemed to absolute truth, something transcendent. I would deem truth transcendent, and truth being the interval between thoughts. And thoughts are somewhat illusory. So, what do I mean? The awakening I had very recently was the awakening of the nature of the self. And this doesn't touch on no self exactly, but we'll get to that. So, what we have here, what you are as, well, as you, regardless of what you define it as, you as the experiencer or the perceiver, or however you want to say it, is you are a matrix of conceptual understandings, perceptions, being, thoughts, mental frameworks, responses, intuitions. There's various dimensions within you. If you of course, if you don't approach it from a non-dual place, you've got your thoughts. One of the main insights I had is simply that the mind is somewhat of a game. It's like a tool, right? And what I mean is a game is in something you can play with. The mind consistently constructs understandings all day, and it's this false identity with these. And what this means is like a heavy involvement with what the thoughts dialogue is. So you think things and it gets you down, right? Because you can't basically, the reason you're not your thoughts, right, is because, and this is it, when I say you're not your thoughts, you're like, well, what do I mean by that, right? Or it's not even that you're not your thoughts, it's that you are your thoughts, but you're not only your thoughts. It's like it takes a while for this to click, and it only really just clicked for me in the past day or so properly. And that it's that there's an awareness behind the thoughts which concludes that you are not ultimately only your thoughts. So the thoughts arise, you can watch them without being so heavily involved and identified with them. So when you think anxious and realize maybe anxious or stressful or any thought of any nature, there doesn't have to be such a direct personal attachment to the thought, and it is really a paradigm shift in many ways. Now, there's a lot to say about it, so I'll continue. But it branches off into various different nuances and dimensions. So the what I was saying about you are a matrix of responses and various different nuances of being is and the mind is a game in the sense that it can be played with. And what I mean is you can construct an understanding. And this builds a sensation of a thought in your mind that is real for the most part. Like you feel the understanding, you understand the understanding, the knowledge, you understand the knowledge, or you construct the knowledge, and it's there. But it's constructed. So any understanding can be deconstructed. And it's through the nature of the mind and the thoughts, how they rise and fall out of constructions and reactions, is you see how there's no solid form to it. There's no absolute truth because, right, although thoughts can change your reality, of course, because when you think, you're embedded in that thought and it's much different than pure presence. The ultimate truth is the here and now. It's the awareness. So, for example, I have a video on my YouTube channel, maybe about 3 months old or something. It was a trip report, somewhat, where I got the camera out on a nice setting and I spoke of dissolving illusions in the present moment. And the present moment really is focusing on being. And there's always existence. There's no such thing as non-existence, by its own definition. So, there's always existence, so there's always being, right? There's always something. So whether that's thoughts, or whether that's a sensation, like colours or taste, you can get identified with each sensation and nuance of being and existence because you are very well those things. But at the same time, you're not any of it. So, this is the confusing thing. Another central theme to awakening is the no self. And the no self is the self I now understand, I'm very certain of, is a construction of the mind. Not that it's extremely practical in our intellectual landscape of being humans. Of course, we need labels and we need distinctions. We need to form dualities in order to construct anything, right? But so you are God and you are everything, supposedly. Like you are everything, right? You are the stage of existence. You are it. But you are also unable to identify yourself with any separate thing, ultimately. The thoughts arise, the thoughts leave. The visuals arise, the visuals leave. The audio arises, the audio leaves. Life is a mishmash of sensations and thoughts and emotions. Sensations and any dimension you can think of that exists in being. Light, just the whole shebang. And thoughts feel very personal to the point where you feel like you are the commentary, when in reality this is another sensation. And so while you are your thoughts, technically, kind of, you're also not your thoughts. Because you are the sum total of your experience, but there is ultimately no personal self. There's no personal ego. So I guess self and ego are somewhat interchangeable. So who are you? You. It's difficult when you get into these deep parts of language, and this is why it takes such a long time to wrap your mind about these teachings. I didn't take this on as dogma. I didn't read this shit and just accept it. It took actual embodiments of these realizations through, I don't know, actualize.org practice of creating an experience of no self. That is a very good video. I recommend you check it out. I done that on psychedelics and just in general, I've had many present moment awakenings, mainly through psychedelics, and especially recently, I I gained a much deeper understanding of this. So you are ultimately right. It's not you, as in the personal you. There's like a true self. There's like the finite egoic self, and then there's like the true self, which is the all-encompassing I am the stage for everything. But it's not that I'm the stage and that I'm the perceiver. It's that like these are all it's all happenings, and as far as I'm aware, this is all me. But you think, oh, how is that you? You're you with your personalities and your body. Right, but the sense of the egoic individual self separate from everything else is a construct of the mind, ultimately. And the absolute self of all encompassing everything that exists is not conceptual. This is a being. So while there's no personal self, there is this holistic happening, this overall happening of everything, of this entirety field of experience. And it gets kind of slippery and confusing if you're going to identify yourself with this entire field of experience. Because it depends how you define the word you. If your definition of you is only what your culture has indoctrinated you with, which is the separate dualistic distinction, then it may be hard to grasp. But you are everything. And that's true. How can you realize that you are everything? There's no distinction between you and everything else? To stop thinking is a good way. So, in terms of how you're going to define the self, if you're going to define yourself as the entirety of existence or as the body, why is this relevant? Well, there's many reasons. For example, say like Alan Watts says, creating the distinction, uh, I, a stranger and afraid, in a world I never made. And it creates a fundamental hostility between you and the external environment, a game of survival. I am me, everything else is not me, and it's this maintenance of the separate egoic self that causes pain and suffering ultimately, as pain is the mental construct of this is the death of me. Or is it just an unpleasant sensation? It's difficult. I'm not going to get in. Should I get into that? Oh, it's difficult. Well, this is something I was thinking, right? Is pain only, right, because you experience the death of you? Pain is tied to, oh no, this is the end of me. This can't be good, right? But maybe it's only because you actually care to be a self and you care to construct a conceptual construction into the future. And this is why a lot of people choose to be asleep in a lot of ways. So, for example, I can enlighten my way out of any problem in some spiritual bypass manner where I go, oh, I'm going to lose my house because I can't pay the rent. Well, I can just present moment my way out of this. But I fooled myself into thinking, and there is truth to it, but you don't want to just spiritually bypass and enlighten your way out of everything, because good luck building a future in the present moment. So, what I mean is, when I was about to hit a crisis of some nature, which I won't name, I'm aware I can enlighten my way out of it, but I choose not to, and I'm still working on this, but it's I treat these ultimately illusory constructs of the mind like, oh no, I'm gonna lose the flat because I can't pay the rent. I treat it as real because it is basically the end game. As far as I'm aware, I really do not want to lose the flat. So if I did lose it, it would be game over. That's not really true if you come at it from a being enlightenment perspective, but I know that I ultimately, as an ego, want to construct this future, and this is where somewhat of a problem comes in with enlightenment, I guess, is you don't want to just spiritually bypass everything. It is worth, in a sense, like I say, basically the sensation of pain is only relevant because you do want to build a life into the future. So if you was absolutely ready to give all of that up, but actually to your core, where you managed to bypass the survival instinct, then perhaps maybe pain would become an abstract sensation of no super meaning. Alan Watts speaks on torture victims, and in short, the hardest part of the torture process for the victim is the beginning, as it is the death of the self. But as the victim and the body decide, basically accept their fate, they can work with the pain, and it becomes abstract, extremely far out sensations of no meaning, particularly because there's no mental construct needed anymore, because the mental constructs are there so that you ensure your survival. But once you bypass the ego, absolutely, through some transcendent torture, it is here where potentially, I haven't verified this, but there is a bypass of pain, as in supposedly even physical pain is the only reason it's unpleasant is a construct of the mind. And then I ate something super spicy, and I sat there and I thought, right, I'm aware this is not going to kill me, but this is still fucking horrible. So it's difficult. So there's some ideas about that stuff anyway. So the false identification with thought. I'll tell you a story. About a year and a half ago, maybe nearly 2 years ago, after after a lot of magic mushroom abuse, I wound up. Here's what happened. My best friend had some trouble with his genitals back in the day. I was also my stepmom started saying I seem to be going to the toilet a lot more than before. And these two things combined into a paranoia into my mind. I don't know if the psychedelics were relevant, but the paranoia of these two factors externally set the foundation for me to construct my own paranoia about basically what happened to me is I needed to go to the toilet every 20 minutes or every half an hour or so. It varied, but it was extremely consistent to the point where I couldn't go to sleep for many hours, a lot of nights. I could barely drive anywhere without needing a pee instantly. And this went on for a long time, and and I did not want this. I dreamt of my healthy, happy days. All I wanted to be was a young boy with a happy potential and a good working body. This was detrimental to me, and it was very embarrassing. It made it hard for me to get a job in a way because I had to keep going to the toilet. And one day, I realized that this physical pain, somewhat, and this consistent needing to go to the toilet, it seemed to very much be constructed by my mind. A friend's parent warned me when I told him this story. He warned my friends to look out for me because he thought I was suffering from. He called it permanent drug-induced psychosis, which, I mean, I don't know who this guy is to tell me nothing. He drinks alcohol, comes home and smashes up his family's yard every day. Basically, he's just an angry fucking NPC who goes out drinking and returns home angry with his family for no reason. So, who's the real fucking psychosis? But anyway, he was telling me this shit because he reckons apparently to be able to turn these things off is very peculiar and not particularly normal. And yeah, it was when I realised that somehow maybe potentially this was all in the mind, it dissolved rather quickly, and I returned to a healthy, happy individual. So there's just an example of how powerful the mind is, and this was suffering to another level because when your body starts fucking up on you with no explanation, I was going to the doctors. I was so paranoid. There's like a little lump like on the bottom of my balls as well, kind of. And I was looking at that, thinking that was the cause of it, and it was all very much in the mind, even though it manifested physically. I'm very sure it was in the mind. It was very, very strange. Very strange. So yeah, there's that. So the identification with a thought is to follow a thought and for some reason think it's you. And basically the way to bypass this is one with a lot of meditation to observe the way that your machine naturally creates constructs and emotions and all sorts. And when you really observe heavily, that is probably one of the best ways to achieve enlightenment. I'm very excited about the going forward now with this because it's this spaciousness is what Eckhart Tolle calls it, and spaciousness is just the sense of being in an openness. And there's rising of thoughts, there's falling of thoughts, there's rising of sensations, and the reason why this is so powerful is one because so many people suffer so much from this construction of an ego and a thought identification, but it's also because it's liberation. To realize, and here's another example that I said in my dissolving illusions in the present moment is like I was stressing once, yeah, because I thought I couldn't pay my rent and everything was going to hit the fan, right, for a month straight, and it was mad, and I was pulling my hair out. No, 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 please, no. At the last minute, I got saved. So while the worrying was somewhat legit and logical, it was ultimately illusory. So I was worrying to save myself from a foreseeable future event that I did not want to take place, that never was going to take place in the first place. And this is a direct verification of immense suffering for me personally, created purely by the mind. Nothing in truth, in being, in sensations was wrong. And this is why I say it's liberation in a lot of ways, because it is to realize that the vast, if not all, suffering is created within the mind. And the liberation is absolute. As when I right now just stare at the window and I can access transcendence, because here's an example. When I walk up to the woodlands on psychedelics, I see the fucking woodlands. Full blast. Wow. If I walk up there when I'm sober, it's almost like my eyes are not even open. On other separate psychedelic experiences, I've had the entire scenery absolutely transform when I decide to become present. The present moment dissolves so much. And the present moment and being is really, probably, for the most part, the center of enlightenment and awakening. But there's many nuances, and it's a massive field. But ultimately, it's grounded in truth, enlightenment. And there's nothing stopping you from achieving it very soon. Or not even achieving it, technically. It's always here. It's just sometimes it's like if a lot of people cannot get breaks from their mind. And when you can't get a break from your thoughts and your mind, and you can't harness the interval, that's where things can arise. And it's also basically that history does not exist. It happened, but enlightened life is awareness is curative in itself. And to become extremely conscious is the way forward into the future, and it's how to put a stop and transform the whole notion of history and moving forward is to because the mind is like some sort of infection. Like, not that it shouldn't absolutely happen, like I'm not saying it's absolutely wrong, but none of these wars need to go down. Nothing's really ever happened. It's it's very deep. I hope you can understand what I've tried to say here. Is there anything I've missed? There is definitely a lot I've missed. This is not the entirety of Awakening, but this is for the most part what I've been realizing, especially recently. So, you as an entity, in conclusion, are a fuck ton a lot deeper. There's an amazing deep understanding And there is an understanding, yeah, and it depends how you want to define understanding in a way. But you can become conscious. That's the word I'm looking. You can develop an awareness, not an understanding, an awareness and a consciousness and a beingness so deep and rich. It may require a lot of time and even a lot of conceptual understanding, baggage and framework to build and think about and really go through and evolve your language and definitions. But ultimately, the main thing that I'd like to say here is you are a lot more diverse and extraordinary potentially than you think. You're not just simply your thoughts. Your thoughts are an arising sensation, and you can watch these. And I know it sounds like I'm chatting shit, but trust me, I do not accept this stuff on dogma, on just flat out belief. I won't do it. It took me to become directly conscious of this, and I believe there is much power in it. And through the stopping of thoughts, there is an inherent contentness, confidence, and almost comfort that can arise. Comfort potentially, but a contentness in a way with presence as it will shock you how much of your life is illusory, is an illusion on a house of cards of thoughts, okay? There's a lecture by Alan Watts called Sudden Enlightenment. I highly recommend you check it out. It's literally astonishing. One of the best lectures by him, in my opinion, that I've discovered thus far. And he says, imagine worrying all of this time only to realize that you haven't had anything to worry about. And that is one of the most profound insights. I was listening to that lecture ages ago on psychedelics, and it really did hit me. It's I was pulling my hair out for so long, as I was saying in many examples, only to realize it hasn't happened. Thoughts create a lot of your emotions. If not all of them. That's another topic in itself. But yeah, and through this, like I say, there's somewhat of a problem where it's not particularly practical to just be present. However, it is, because everything you're looking for is within presence most of the time. All of the other running around being a fucking monkey with monkey brain is ultimately illusory, and it'll lead you to many dead ends. And if you can't return yourself to the reality of the present moment, then you won't be grounded in nothing exactly true. You run around in the external world, and this is why meditation is so important, is because to ground yourself in what is real. There's a video by actualize.org called Satisfaction Meditation, which is to try to build a satisfaction with the present moment. And it's without these practices, you can really lose yourself. You can become very dependent on external circumstances. You are very conditionally happy. Do you want to be unconditionally happy? Another video by Actualized. He was really the intro for me into the excellence of life and the divinity. I knew about other teachers, but Actualized really rationally broke it down in kind of rationally, but he was the gateway for me. And now I've moved on to many other lecturers and podcasts, and my experience is really deepening by the minute, especially in terms of awakening. But hey, I think I've said basically everything I need to say. I appreciate you if anyone listened to this. Thank you very much. I've got a lot of updates coming. My YouTube channel got my first strike or my first warning the other day, so I'm gonna have to change my content up. I will always tell my truth. We'll see how it goes. I'm still contemplating a lot on the nature of how I'm gonna move into the future, but I want to be very strategic. But that's a video for the future, so we'll get to that. But hey, thank you very much for listening. I got a lot on my plate right now, and I got a lot to deal with, and it's going to take a few months to get out of this situation that my past self has created through a lack of consciousness, foresight, and self love, and a lot of self sabotage. And but hey, we move, and it's all part of the awakening journey, is it not? But yeah, I mean, if you enjoyed that, I guess then let me know. I hope it was useful. Maybe I tried my best, and I'll make more parts to the Enlightenment series in the future. So I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Subscribe to Baron Davidson on YouTube and go to oxen.co.uk for more epicness. oxsn.co.uk. Wow.